Dogs, Eric from the Eric from True Photography blog. Currently out shooting with a Leica film like MP with a new Henri Mark III strip. And so I wanted to give you a basic sense of how to shoot film on a film rangefinder or any film camera, and just to give you a sense of practical tips. So first and foremost, let's say I'm out shooting somewhere, so you kind of see the scene here. I've kind of memorized that generally if it's like super bright like this, in terms of settings, what I would do is F8. I like to memorize the settings, so F8 at about 1,000th of a second. And so what I'll do is, I memorize that setting and I'll bring up the viewfinder. And also you have to remember the focus. So generally speaking, if you're at the far distance, you see this focusing tab. Your focus is 45 degrees to the right. And because I'm shooting at F8, you can see it's pre-focused at, like, let's say it's pre-focused about 5 meters. Everything from about 2 meters all the way up to close to infinity is going to be in focus. So I've pre-focused it, and what I'll do is I'll look at the scene here. And you can see if I push the shutter in halfway, there's actually a little meter at the bottom that shows, and you can see the viewfinder angles. So you can see in this scene here, it says I'm a little bit overexposed. So let's assume that I change the exposure to about f16. And it still says I'm too bright, but I think the camera is lying. So whereas if you're shooting in the shade, you can see it says it's underexposed. So now I'll adjust the exposure, the aperture. It says according to that I'm spot on. So you can see this, the little arrow on the right means that it's overexposed, the little arrow on the left means underexposed. And the way you can adjust your exposure is of course changing the aperture or changing the shutter speed on top. And my practical tip is when you're practicing with exposure on a film camera, keep your one setting the same and just adjust the other variables. So for example, if you're out shooting on a bright sunny day, so I'm shooting ISO 400 on Kodak Portrait 400, and I'll keep this at f8, and the only thing I'll actually change is change the shutter speed. So generally speaking, good default settings to remember is on a bright sunny day, f8 at about 1,000th of a second is fine, but if you're shooting in the shade, actually I go down to about 60th of a second. Now obviously all these settings are pretty flexible. They're not going to be super consistent, but let's say I'm going to photograph a real scene. So let's say, what I want to photograph. Let's say I'm walking and I kind of like these chairs, and let's say I kind of like this idea of my head shadow here and the light here. So what I do is, once again, my camera, I've kind of memorized it, so f8 about 1,000th a second, it's fine. So then I'll bring up the viewfinder, and you can see that there's basic finder lines, and essentially you could choose a spot to focus. So generally speaking, easy things to focus on is looking at lines like the shadows. So you can see the finder lines. If it's not focused, the viewfinder patch in second, you see this is focused, not focused, focused, not focused. And then I'll just bring it up, and then I'll try to compose the scene well, and then click. And then afterwards, of course, what to do is rewind, and then you can get ready to shoot again. So anyways, this is just a very basic overview of how to shoot with a film like a rangefinder. The big practical tips I'd have is, you see this focusing tab? When the focusing tab is dead center, you're pre-focused at about 1.2 meters, which is roughly 2 arm lengths away. If you take the focusing tab to 45 degrees to the left, then it's about minimum focusing distance, which is about 0.8, 0.7 meters, which is about 1 arm length away. And if you do this 45 degrees to your right, that's about far distance, which is about 3 to 5 meters, and everything's in focus. So once again, just learn how to focus by feel. Start off by photographing stationary things, and just have fun. And peep the new Henri neck strap Mark III in the haptic shop at hapticindustries.com. Alright, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Peace out.